welcome back to my channel and welcome back to another video. This is a video that I kind of didn't want to ever have to film, but I need to because I feel like there's just not enough information and guidance and just general talking about gestational diabetes. I have written some notes, so if you wonder why I keep looking down, it's just because I don't want to miss anything. I'm just trying to get comfy. I've literally just filmed my pregnancy Q&A, which lasted so long. So I'm hoping this one won't be too rambly, but yeah, there's definitely some things that I want to discuss. Just as a disclaimer, little note to add, I'm not medically trained. This is just kind of talking through the last month or so, my experience, just things like that, because I feel like when I found out, like I say, there was no information really, and I was just kind of like told the results and left in the dark and been like, we'll speak to you about it next week. But a week's a long time to not know anything, and obviously, like most people, I went on to Dr. Google, and Dr. Google always tells you the most horrendous horror stories, and really did not help with how anxious I was feeling about it. So hopefully this video might help you. So as a background, I was told that I would be having the gestational diabetes test at 28 weeks, which is standard here in the UK on the NHS. If it's your second pregnancy, or if you show signs of sugar in your urine sample, then you may well have it earlier, the test that is. But as a whole, it's usually about 28 weeks. I didn't have any symptoms whatsoever, like a lot of people don't, to be fair. Like, I just didn't really think too much into it. The only reason I was referred was because my BMI was 30.5, I think it was. So I was literally borderline because it was 30 and above. And my midwife joked that if I had been an inch taller or like a couple of pounds lighter, then I wouldn't have been put forward for the test at all, unless I showed any symptoms of having gestational diabetes. So I was a little bit miffed at having to have this test because I was borderline, but in hindsight I'm glad I did, because obviously it became positive, and so I needed that extra help and support and guidance things anyway. So in terms of the test, because I know there's a lot of horror stories out there, I'll start off by saying the test for me wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. There are some things I regret that I'll go on to in a minute, but for the large parts of the test, you have to fast from midnight on the day of your appointment. This may vary as well, just so you know, but you'll get a letter, and they'll tell you all the information depending on your hospital, because I have noticed that depending on your hospital and your area depends on so many things: the guidance, the machinery used, how the test works, like so many things. It varies widely, which is quite a scary thing considering the NHS is one thing, but different trusts do it differently. So anyway, yeah, you fast from midnight. All you can have is sips of water. My appointment was supposed to be 8:40, I think. I didn't end up getting seen till closer to 9, by which point I was absolutely starving. But they are quite, where I went, they were quite quick. They knew that obviously everyone was starving, and they knew that the quicker they got them in and done the tests and come back out, the quicker each pregnant mama could eat, which was much needed. So turned up at the hospital, check-in and everything, and then they take your bloods, just a standard thing. If you've got to 28 weeks, you know how much blood they take. You know, it just feels like they constantly want more. But they took the bloods and labelled those and obviously sent them off or whatnot. And they give you a drink of, I can only describe it as sugary Capri Sun. It was just very sugary, very orangey. and you're told to drink that. I think you get 5 minutes to drink it, but actually it's that cold and easy to drink, it doesn't take long. And they follow it up with a glass of water as well, I guess just to wash it down, I don't really know. So you have that, and then you go back out to the waiting room or whatnot, and then you basically have 2 hours to wait, 2 hours to hang around. You can go for a walk. I chose just to sit in the waiting room with a book. Ash was playing a game on his phone, and surprisingly the time went pretty quickly. There was a period of it where I think I was like an hour and 15 minutes into it where I've become over really clammy and I thought I was going to throw up. I don't know if that's from the HG side of it, because I chose not to take my tablets, so it could be that, or it could be the effect of the drink, that solution that I had to have, I don't know. But I just took my hoodie off, put my book down, sipped on some water, because you're still allowed to sip water, and just took it steady, and that soon passed. And then you go back in for another blood test where they're obviously checking how that solution has worked within your body, and then after that you're free to go and eat, which is an amazing feeling, I'm not gonna lie. And surprisingly I didn't feel hungry when I actually left the hospital. So I think the solution does kind of fill you up because you're getting the sugar, so baby feels like they're having something, I think. So I didn't actually feel too hungry. And then you get the results usually within 48 hours. Mine was the same day. I was very lucky. At the hospital where I had it done, they work until like 7:30 each evening, so about 7 o'clock I had a phone call to say unfortunately it was positive, and I was booked another appointment to go in and see them for training, which we'll get on to in a minute. I'll try and remember to put on screen my fasting levels and my post-test level, because then you can see what you're kind of working for. I think my fasting level had to be lower than 5.2, and my post-test level had to be less than 7.7. So you'll see how far over I am if I write it on screen. The things I would have done differently is the days leading up to it, I probably would have drunk more, because although I did drink quite a bit, I obviously didn't drink enough, because during the blood test my blood just decided it didn't want to give any more. It just closed up. It was like no. So then it took a bit longer because I had to have them redo the test, like the blood test, not the whole thing. So like I come out of there with a lot more bruises, I think, than everybody else did. I'd also be more mindful of what I was eating in the days leading up to it, because I had a big bar of Galaxy caramel chocolate the night before, like afternoon before, and knowing what I do now, like I regret that massively. I don't think it would have stopped me from having the gestational diabetes, but I do wonder if it would have stopped my level being as high as it was. And added to that, I wish that I had, in hindsight, gone for a walk, because several of them went for a walk around the hospital grounds. You had to stay on hospital grounds, and you had like a wristband with your name and everything, obviously, in case you collapse. But I wish I'd gone for a walk, because again, knowing what I do now about exercise and how the body works and things, I think that probably would have helped bring my level down slightly, if not completely. But yeah, it is what it is. I'll know for future reference, and yeah, there's nothing much I can do about it, to be honest. I think at this point it's very important for me to say that gestational diabetes is very, very common. When you look at the percentages of how many people have it, it is hugely common, because it is just a normal thing for your body to struggle with the insulin side of things. I struggle with like the sugar and stuff, because obviously as baby's getting bigger, things are getting pushed up here, there and everywhere, and everything's becoming a bit more sluggish. So yeah, it is very, very common, and just know that it's not your fault. You can have the healthiest diet going and still get gestational diabetes, which I think is key to point out, because at the very beginning I blamed myself because of like the chocolate, the not going for a walk, not great diet, things like that. And apparently having HD sickness is a contributing factor, because when you're sick your body reacts differently, which puts you more at risk for gestational diabetes, which I didn't know. So yeah, just know it's not your fault, it's just one of those things. So post diagnosis, I've obviously got to be very, very mindful about food. I've had to learn to look at ingredients, which I kind of used to do a little bit. I used to use MyFitnessPal, and paired with going to the gym, you know, I thought I was eating healthy. MyFitnessPal told me I was, blah blah blah, when in actual fact it's kind of opened my eyes now as to what is actually in food, and I look at food in a whole new light now, and I don't think I'll ever look at it the same as I did before ever again. I don't think that's a bad thing, but in those first few days, knowing what you can and can't eat kind of feels like a minefield. Minefield. It's, yeah, it's stress on a whole nother level, because you're always told you need to eat to feed baby, but then all of a sudden there's so many things that Dr. Google says you can't have. So yeah, it is a stressful period, and for me, I found it very emotional. I think there was probably about 3 or 4 days where intermittently I just burst into tears, just from the sheer overwhelming feeling of it all. And also I found that in those first few days I ate less, partly because I was upset, and I don't know about you, but if I'm upset I don't want to eat, and partly because I just didn't know what I could eat, you know. I basically literally had a phone call saying, yep, you've got gestational diabetes, we need to see you on this date, goodbye. That was all the information I was given on that first phone call, which I get that they don't want to do any of that by phone, but it doesn't leave that anxious feeling any better, you know. Which brings me on to Facebook. There is a Facebook group called Gestational Diabetes UK. Obviously this is for people in the UK, but I would imagine there is similar websites in different countries as well, or you may be able to use the UK Facebook group. I don't know what their parameters are, but they have so much support in there, whether it's you want to have a meltdown and a rant, whether you want recipes or additional information, there's literally so much support on there. I found their guidance really helpful in those first few days because I had no other information, and so their guidance, I guess, really helped me to build that foundation of what I needed to be thinking about, and it also gave me a bit of clarity so that when I did go into my first appointment I didn't have a million and one questions, because I felt quite calm in the sense that I knew some of them answers already. What I will say, and what I will have learned from being on that Facebook group, is that the NHS hospital guidance surprisingly isn't completely accurate. I'll get onto that in a minute about my first appointment, but if I was to be admitted to hospital and I said that I had to follow a diet suitable for gestational diabetes, from what a lot of other people have experienced, if you are there for food, then they aren't diabetes friendly at all. And you're kind of told you've just got to eat what's on the list, knowing full well it's going to make your levels worse. So yeah, that surprised me quite a lot, to be fair. On that, as we talk about the first appointment, which was a training appointment. So this is where I got a little goodie bag, but it's not the goodie bag that you kind of want. It came with a sharps bin to put the needles in. You can see where this is going. And it also came with my little testing kit. I can open it up so you can see. Take out my bloody tissue. So yeah, this is everything that you will need. So I've got like spare needles in there. This is the pen. These are the strips to put the blood on. This is the testing machine, and this is the, what do they call it? It's a solution. Basically, you put this on the strip every time you open a new bottle. It's just like a quality control type thing. So you get given that kit. It gets set up because you also have an app on your phone as well. You get given an appointment, a follow-up appointment with a dietitian. I think that's what they call it, diabetes dietitian. Mine was for a week later, so again there was a long period of time in between. And you also get, I haven't got them with me, I can see them sat behind the camera, an absolute ton of leaflets, like information. They're not complete leaflets, they're A4 pages just full of all this information, which they go through slightly, but even going through, and then when I've read them, it's kind of at face value. I remember being at school, going slightly off subject, and I used to write essays in English, or like especially history. My history essays, it always used to come back with the same remarks of good interpretation at face value, but you haven't really delved in deeper and you could do a lot better, that kind of thing. That's how those leaflets feel. Basically, it's literally like someone's copied and pasted off Google without an understanding. That's how it feels. So that's what I mean about as well, the NHS guidelines aren't really up to date. One of the leaflets, for example, one of the leaflets that I got, it was on about nutrition, and it listed these things that you could have on a gestational diabetes diet. I hate the word diet in pregnancy, but that's what it is. It's a controlled diet. And at least 4 of the things that are on there sent my readings sky high, and I couldn't work it out to start with. And then it wasn't until I went onto the Facebook group and I read some of the other comments, and they were just like, I don't know why they're recommending this stuff. One of the things it recommended was sweet potato. I had sweet potato, my reading was like far in the red. I think it was like 8 or something, which doesn't seem a lot from 7.7, but it on the graph it was well out of the range. And there's just bits and pieces like that, and I just think, why are you doing that? Oh, and another one it said was you had to do 5 portions of fruit, 5 portions of veg, whereas in actual fact you're not meant to have much fruit and more veg, but the veg should be green, not any other colour. So it's all just bits like that yeah, the guidance is a bit hit and miss, to be honest. Whereas the Facebook group, I think I got more information out of it. They've got so many recipes and stuff as well. The majority I can't have because they've got nuts, and I've got to be careful with nuts. And seeds I'm just not a fan of. I'd rather do without than try and eat seeds. It's just not going to happen. But yeah, definitely that group is really, really helpful. So if you are on this journey, then definitely check them out. So I had my training appointment, come home. I obviously then had my appointment with my dietitian. That was via the phone. I've got to sit back a minute. It hurts. But yeah, so that was via the phone. And let me tell you, I've never been so disappointed in a phone appointment ever before. Like, I've spent more time on the phone to my GP when they're trying to work out what's wrong with me over the years. My phone call lasted, I looked on my call log, 1 minute 40 seconds, and that was me confirming that who I was, and I had to give out like my NHS number and stuff. Yeah, little pleasantries like, how are you, blah blah blah, how are you, you know. Yeah, my appointment was 1 minute 40. So I didn't learn anything out of that appointment. All she said was she was happy with my levels, I was doing good, and just keep doing what I was doing. And she just reiterated something that I'd been told in the first appointment, that was, as my pregnancy progresses, my levels will get higher because my body's working harder. And it was a case of not to panic because it will change as the weeks go on. That was literally the only bit of advice she gave me. So I'm just glad that I joined that Facebook group, because otherwise I would still be struggling. So at the minute I am diet controlled only, but there is tablets that they can put you on if you can't control it by diet, and if the tablets don't work, then you get given insulin to inject into yourself as well, which I'm really hoping I don't get to that stage, because I'm finding it hard enough to prick my finger. So fingers crossed I don't get to that stage. There are different levels and different ways around it, and I think that's why I'm so focused on the food element. I really don't want to be put on any more medication if I can help it. So it also means having gestational diabetes, that I have to have growth scans quite regularly. I think it's every 3 weeks at the minute, and then the closer it gets to my due date, it will be squeezed down into like once a week or once every 2 weeks, that kind of thing, just so they can keep an eye on baby. At the minute she was measuring slightly heavier, but not of a concern in nature, and they measured that her tummy was slightly bigger than average, but again it wasn't off the scale, so it was within parameters, it was just above average. So yeah, they're just going to have to keep an eye on it. And along with those growth scans, I haven't had one yet. I think I've got one possibly next week. I had a weird appointment text message come through earlier today, and I think that is an appointment with my consultant, where they're just going to talk through like my readings and how the rest of this pregnancy is going to progress, and talking about the growth scan, things like that. Definitely a lot more appointments, so that's something to bear in mind, because obviously you need to go to these appointments because they are very, very important. And I'm lucky that Ash has been able to come to all of those as well with me. The only silver lining is I get to see baby girl on the screen again, which I always love, because I kind of set myself up that unless anything went wrong, my 20-week scan was the last time I would see her. And yeah, I've been lucky enough to see her again. But yeah, obviously I'd rather not have the gestational diabetes, but fingers crossed it's manageable at the moment. There is talk of me being induced early. They don't really like women with gestational diabetes to go past 38 weeks. Some have pushed and gone full term, but that's only when they've really controlled their diet and they've basically have greens throughout. I've had a couple of reds. I think I've had 3 reds. I think I've also had a blue as well, which means it's below target, so I've had like a bit of a slump. So I don't know if they'll take that into account, or whether they'll say that was the first week, you know, you were still learning kind of thing. I don't know. So baby girl might be here earlier than anticipated, who knows. Every journey with gestational diabetes is unique to each individual pregnancy. There isn't 2 that are the same. Even on the Facebook group, what works for one person won't work for another, and it is a bit of trial and error, to be fair. So yeah, just bear that in mind. Just try your best is all I can say. I would say I feel constantly hungry now. today is the first day where I haven't felt hungry. Like, it's definitely, what's the word? Definitely hard work, I would say. Just knowing what you can eat, and I found some staples that really work for me. I'll probably do like a separate what I eat in a day gestational diabetes version. I don't think I've ever done a what I eat in a day on this channel, not since I come back anyway. I probably had one that I deleted years ago, but since my big comeback I don't think I've done one, so that will be good to do, I think. But I would say that I'm getting sick of it because I'm eating similar things that I know work. Yeah, I'm just like, nah, you know, like I'm just fed up of it. Like, I've been having soups for lunch, and today I was just like, I can't face another soup, you know. So yeah, it's not the best. I definitely think I've now grown to hate food at the minute. I've got no joy when it comes to food. Like, I used to love going to the supermarket and finding things that I could eat and trying out new things, whereas now I haven't got any of that. I've just got to stick to my basics almost. And obviously it's leading up to Christmas as well, and all the Christmas treats are out and I can't have any, which makes me really, really sad. What I have decided to do is I am going to get a little box, and I'm going to pick up those sweet treats, like a chocolate Yule log. I really want a chocolate Yule log, and just bits and bobs like that. And I'm going to pop them in the box, put the box away, and then when baby girl's here and hopefully I get it all clear, I can then indulge a little in some sweet treats. I don't think I'll go mad, just because, yeah, like I say, my mindset has changed now. I don't think it would ever go back, but definitely going to treat myself afterwards to some little chocolates and things like that. And that is one thing to note as well, where I say like get cleared, I have to have another gestational diabetes test 6 weeks postpartum, just to check that everything has gone back to normal and my body is functioning as it should. If it isn't, then I'm classed as type 2 diabetes. So then obviously it will still be controlled, etc., and finger pricks and all that jazz. But having gestational diabetes, they say, increases your likelihood of getting type 2 diabetes at some point in the future. So in a way, I feel like it's been a bit of a wake-up call for me, especially when it comes to actually seeing what is in the food I eat. That is a big one for me, because obviously when you think of diabetes, you think of sugars. That's the main one that comes. Oh, if I just cut out sugar, I'll be fine. When in actual fact, carbs are actually worse in a way, because the carbs will then break down and pump sugar, or like they turn into glucose and pump that into your bloodstream. So if you have like a big plate of chips, you might as well have just had a bag of Haribo, because it's not going to do much different. So yeah, that was a big eye opener for me, definitely. So I think that's all I'm going to probably update you on in this video. I'm aware I have rabbited quite a lot. I have, I think, got through all of my notes, so that's the main thing. I'll try and keep you updated as I can through the vlogs that I'm doing, and yeah, I'll definitely do a what I eat in a day video, just showing you the types of things that I've managed to eat. But yeah, I definitely can't wait for a day where I don't look at the ingredients that are in the food, because yeah, it's not fun. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this video useful, helpful, insightful, and I just hope that it's taken away a bit of that anxiety that you probably have if you have been diagnosed with gestational diabetes. You're not alone. There are thousands of us women that currently have it, And yeah, if you need any help or anything, I definitely recommend checking out that Facebook group. They are more trained and more knowledgeable than I could ever be. But if you do have any burning questions that you want to ask me, then feel free to leave them down below and I will try my best to answer them. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss that What I Eat in a Day video and lots of other content coming up, obviously including me introducing you to baby girl in the not too distant future. And yeah, please remember to like this video and I'll see you all again very soon. Bye bye.